Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to join the very talented Eliana with her fantastic animation film, Filmmakers. Let's take a look at the clip.
15.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for making this wondrous film that has got such a great story to it. For those that haven't seen your film, tell us a brief synopsis.
Sure. So Nails follows a girl who's preparing for her quinceañera, and she develops a crush on another girl in her quince court. And that crush makes her fingernails grow at this superhuman pace, which is a blessing on one hand because long nails are a fixture in Black and Latino beauty culture, but it's also a curse for a lesbian, or at least it is at first glance. So Nails is a whimsical, uplifting, intersectional coming-of-age story.
I mean, why would you not want to watch this film? There's just so many great reasons to watch it. Where did the inspiration come for creating this project?
Overall, I'm really motivated by telling joyful stories about intersectional identities. And so, you know, as a queer woman of color, I sort of always grew up experiencing that conflict between the long nails thing and the short nails thing. And there's so many sort of places where those intersections can become fraught. So when I was thinking about this concept, I really wanted to celebrate or find a way to take that story and bring it around to a happy ending.
Yeah, I can't tell you how wonderful this was to see in animation and finally see an animation that truly represented the world we live in, you know, in terms of just inclusion of what we would see in an actual high school, you know, and just making things feel so normal. And as part of the LGBTQ, I was like, oh my God, it's two women falling in love. This is beautiful, you know? It's just so great, just in this wondrous way, and you did it so well. But I love how this extended from a very big story, and then you somehow condensed that into a animation. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, so Nails originally was it was a 90-minute long stage play. I come from a playwriting background.
Yeah.
And then I got the opportunity to pitch it as a short film, so I adapted it from that 90-minute to a 15-minute live-action short. And then the pandemic rolled around and interrupted the production process for that live-action short, and it turned into a 5-minute no-dialogue animation.
Brilliant.
So it was a lot of transformation, and ultimately I think that the form it's ended up in, that animated version, is really the core of what the story is. So I'm thankful that it had such a long journey, and I think that, you know, there are things that I learned in the 90-minute version that really served me in the 15-minute version, and that made the 5-minute version work the way that it does.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. I mean, I was such a strong essence of character that I just wanted to watch these characters evolve in, like, TV series, feature, just saying. Like, you know, they were really articulated so well, and it was just so nice on so many levels to sort of see these characters evolve and just actually make it feel real and like part of everyday life, which it is anyway, and you just did that so well. Now, this is your first animation.
Yes,
I could not believe that. Like, I was like, no, this must be like 15th or something, like something. So tell us a little about that dynamic of like making your first animation, working with your team. Like, how does that even work when you're first beginning?
Yeah, wow, it was a lot of leaps of faith, and really I'm so grateful to the people who trusted me and gave me support along the way. At the beginning of the process, it was actually a mentor who floated the idea, what if you just animate it? Why not just make it animated?
Wow.
And it's so easy to suggest that, like, yeah why not?
Yeah.
And so I signed on and I went into it, honestly, really not even remotely understanding how demanding animation is as a form. And so the earliest steps of the process were really just having meetings with animation students to ask, like, how does this work?
Yeah, right.
What are the steps? What should I expect? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And so the first phase was really getting a lot of education around animation and how the process worked. And then from there, I partnered with my co-producer and character designer and art director, Rebel Rosa, who's actually an old friend from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I went to an arts high school. I was in the theater department. He was a visual artist. And he immediately came to mind as somebody who was was a real fit for the story in terms of also, advocating for representation of people of color in animation and the visual art world particularly.
Yeah.
And then also someone who was queer and in touch with these worlds and the issues that the short covered.
Yeah.
So he had done an animation before, and he was a really wonderful partner. And then we just sort of hit the ground running, and it was this kind of frantic process. And because it was COVID at the time, it was like winter 2021, like cold, dark,
that
pandemic
time.
winter.
Yeah, we remember, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was really uplifting to be able to focus on something that was happy and loving in the middle of that sort of cold, dark time.
Yeah.
And so from there, I storyboarded, oh my gosh, I think it was like 150 frames.
Wow.
Myself. And then I sent them to Revel, and he would draw them in the character style because my storyboards looked like little goblin creatures.
Oh, wow.
And then we put together the animatic. I cut the animatic myself. And
You
then,
did? Oh, amazing.
And then we just sort of used that piece to recruit people. And I was so thankful that there were people who really connected with the story. So even though it was a lot to trust a first-time director, they loved the story, and so we got buy-in from really incredible artists.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we had a team of 14.
Wow, wow. I can only imagine what you must feel making this project and how proud you must be by the end result, because watching that on the big screen was just, I mean, how did that feel for you? Like,
oh my gosh, it was really, really just a lovely, moving experience.
Yeah.
Like, especially again, having made it during COVID, during a time where
Yeah.
I couldn't show it to anybody, and there wasn't really a way to get an audience reaction from anyone.
Yeah.
Getting to hear the laughs in the crowd was really, really rewarding. That was great.
Yeah. And no, honestly, I just think like what you created and on the different layers, and again, like what your team was advocating for, particularly, just so great to see people from all different ethnicities in your film, like up there as it should have been. And then, being a queer person, having a queer story just be the center point, but not like this big deal, just love, just young love, which was so beautiful as well. I mean, it's nice to see some, but at the same time, we never get to see this on our screens, do we? You know? And did you get a lot of amazing just people that could relate or feedback, or how wonderful that must have been for you, just taking this on tour?
Yeah, it was really lovely. I think it's so interesting because animation should be a space where we have so much freedom to express diversity and to sort of like bring the widest range of experiences possible to the screen, but so often animation ends up being really exclusionary.
Yep.
And so being able to craft a team that brought diversity both in our sort of animated characters, but also in the team was really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
And then it was also I think it was also lucky that we had started with a live action process because I brought so much intentionality to the casting of the live action folks. And so then when we moved to animation, we had people to model our characters off of. So the actors who we had originally cast became the basis for the characters that we designed. So it was really like that spirit of inclusion that started with the first version got to carry through to every subsequent piece.
Well, okay then, as a director, when you're directing animation, obviously it's got, little dialogue and stuff like that and everything else. Like, how do you do that? Can you teach us? How does that work? Like, what was that experience like for you on this particular, set?
I think I come from a live action, I come from a playwriting background and a live action filmmaking background, but like a totally zero budget filmmaking background. Like, okay, you're the script supervisor and you're also gonna hold the boom, and then you're producing, and then also please like find a location.
Get stuck in,
Yeah, that sort of scrappy quality. And I think that scrappiness really served in this process as well. With animation, the way that one of the students who I asked to help teach me the process described it is that with live action, you sort of gather all your material and then you put the film together. But with animation, you make what's called the animatic, which is all the storyboards cut together in sequence.
Got it.
And that establishes the timing of the film. And so in animation, it's sort of like you make the bones of the film first.
Yeah,
and then you build everything on top of that.
Got it, I
So
see.
those storyboards I created and cut together that animatic, that became the basis for every single department to do their work.
Wow.
So the composers were composing to the animatic while the animators were creating each shot, while the color team was coloring them. So it was sort of like
amazing.
everything happening at once.
Yeah.
Which was hectic. It was a lot to manage. And I think that a lot of what I took away from it was just the importance of having a really organized production process.
Yeah.
We had 60 shots, and each
Wow.
shot has to go through like rough animation, and then it gets cleaned up, and then it gets colored, and then it gets compositing, which is like adding light to the animation. And so we had to track every shot through every single phase of the process, and it was just a big push. But I think that animatic phase was really the biggest sort of piece of my work as a director, because it was like all those decisions had to be made up front.
Yeah.
And there was no going back at a certain point. And so
Yeah.
it was like we were locked into some of those decisions.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there were things that we had to figure out how to do on the fly. And mostly just, animation is expensive.
Yeah,
So
it is. And a lot of time goes into 5 minutes.
very
Yeah.
incredible. We were in production for 7 months.
Wow, yeah.
So it was an incredibly time-consuming process, and there were also things that we had to pivot and change just because we didn't have time or because we couldn't afford it. So there was a little bit of that resilience, but I was surprised by how much came down to just really making strong decisions from the top and then doing everything I could to support the team along the way.
I thought you could make anything happen, Eliana. I think you just got that knack. I thought you just create a very safe space for your team and on set, and I think that's really half the battle anyway. Looking back at this, I mean, obviously we had a fantastic program last night. You definitely were the light in our program that was such a wonderful program. How is it? We certainly welcome you and so happy part of the New Filmmakers LA family, but you had such a wonderful group of people, and it was so delightful to have, as we do every month with female directors, but a whole day of just incredible female directing talent. How has that been part of this particular experience this month?
It was so wonderful to connect with the other filmmakers and to see their work. I left feeling so inspired, which was it was a real joy.
Yeah.
And getting to connect with other people and see their work, I also think it really changed the dynamic of the crowd and the audience watching the piece.
For sure.
It's interesting because on one hand, Nails relies on some cultural signifiers that are kind of niche. Like you have to know the sort of like context in Black and Latino beauty culture and then also the context in queer culture.
Yeah.
And the film teaches you along the way. So someone who's coming to the film without that context, like you learn along the process. But I think that for people who do come in with that intersectionality and that awareness, it's a whole different experience of the film from the start. But I also think that the film works even if you know none of that. Like it has the bones of a Cinderella story. We have a fairy godmother. So I think it's so exciting to me that the film works on those two levels.
Yeah.
And what I loved about the crowd, having such a female-forward crowd, a crowd where there were other queer stories represented as well, you could hear the people who were hooking in at that early point, who understood before the film announced it. Then you heard the people who were following along. It was sort of like this cascade of people who were clicking into the premise at different points.
Yeah, and it was just, magical to see as well. Like, this is obviously a moment in time for a young woman to, it's a celebration, within the culture, this beautiful dance that's part of it. I've been lucky enough to be at these occasions, but to see these two lovely young women dance together, and then the way you had the ensemble, like, oh well, listen, let's just I mean, that's something we've never seen before. You know what I mean? Like, let alone in animation. And I thought how beautiful that you've just crossed these wonderful cultures, and for the first time we're seeing something we've never seen. Was that something that was? I mean, that must have been lovely for you to create and make and be a forefront in creating that. You know?
Absolutely. I think especially at this sort of historical moment where we're seeing a lot of hostile legislation coming out, like to be able to tell a story about young people where the community is accepting, that really meant a lot to me. That was my favorite laugh of the night, actually, when the boys did the little spin.
Your boys
and everyone
little spin,
was like,
it's like, I know, it was so good. And let's just not be in, there's no fear here.
There was a shrug,
a shrug.
Yeah,
there's take out the fear of this community for sure. But no, well done for that. Well done. I can't wait to watch everything you bring to us. What is next for you?
So I do come from a playwriting background, and my play Dreamhouse last season had a triple world premiere co-production.
What? Amazing.
It was an incredible experience, and after that co-production, the play went on to be published. So now it's available for licensing from Concord Samuel French, so that's out there in the world for anybody that wants a little more Eliana content.
That's amazing. And can we purchase that now? Is it purchased on Amazon? Or?
You could get a little hard copy. It's available through Concord Theatricals.
Concord Theatricals, okay. You heard that. Let's all support and make sure we support Eliana. But that's amazing. So that's what's going on for you at the moment, is it's being distributed to the world.
Yeah, so that play is sort of moving and having its life. And then on top of that, I've been working on a few pilots and also playing with adapting that play into a feature.
I can't wait. Well, listen, whatever you do, we're here for it, and we're so supportive. But thank you for bringing Nails to us, and welcome to the New Filmmakers family. I appreciate you.
I'm so happy to be here. This whole festival has been an incredible experience. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Thank you very much, Eliana, everybody.